Hi guys, Jack Spirko with Meads of the Week episode 4. I've got a little outline with me today because I've got so much to cover with you today. I've got two new meads. One's actually a new batch of a mead we've talked about before because it's come off so well. That same mead I've got aging with oak, and I'll tell you why in a second. I've got a brand new mead I'm working on that's only halfway there right now. I'm actually going to pitch the yeast with you because it was just made and it's gotten to a temperature I think it's about ready to pitch. I've got some spices to talk to you about. I've got a new honey source to talk to you about. I got some stuff coming up in the future. I've got a mead to taste with you. This is going to be a great episode. I even got tools to share with you today. We're going to start out with a mead that I made about 35 days ago. And the only reason it's not in the bottle is I haven't got to bottle it yet. It was racked about 10 days ago. It's been in a secondary sitting in the Keyser, which is my big giant refrigerator converted from a deep freezer. And it's beautifully clear. And this is what I'm calling 14 cherries mead. And I have 3 meads I'm calling 14s now. 14 cherries, 14 blackberries, and 14 raspberries. We've made them all together. There's a lot more than 14 in there. It's because it's 14 ounces. Those are the standard freezer bag sizes of frozen fruit in your grocer's section. You can get them in organic in most grocery stores as well if that's important to you. It is to me. And this is just 14 ounces of cherries, 2.5 pounds of honey, and the Cuvee yeast blend with Pasteur Blanc. So with that, let's give it a taste. I can't see anybody complaining about this. Now, there are people that like sweeter meads, and they would tell you this is too dry for their taste. But you could change that just by adding a little bit more honey to the mix and leaving a little residual sweetness behind it, going from 2.5 maybe to 3 pounds. We'll talk about why I did that with a mead today, even though I generally don't like sweet meads, or taking it all the way up to 3.5 to 4 pounds of honey and leaving a lot of residual sweetness to really bring out the cherries. This is excellent to me. What this reminds me of is like a hint of cherry brandy, and it makes me think about oak aging this mead the next time I do a batch in the secondary. Let me have one more sip before we go on. And of course, there's Fermax in that to feed the yeast. I pretty much make all my meads the same way now, and I'm coming into more and more commonalities for my base mead. Next, I want to talk about this. This came from Jerry Mollet, also JD, I guess he's known as. JD Mollet on the Underground Meadery. He's the one that came up with this idea. These bottles are available at Walmart. I think I paid like $11.95 for it. And you make a hole in the top and you have an airlock, and voila, you've got a 2.5 gallon fermenter. Come on, dogs, chill. Now, what's awesome about 2.5 gallons per fermenter? They're really going to make this hard because my wife's not selling eggs right now. Well, when I rack into the secondary, by going to about 2.25 gallons of volume, which is where this is, all I did was, dump 2 gallons in market and then dump another quart in to see where I would get. And found my line to go to 2.25 gallons. I can leave behind some and still get 2 full secondaries, 2 glass secondaries to age this mead out. And I'm going to be aging it out with oak that I'll talk about in a second. This is what I'm calling Meyer Lemon Mead. All this is to the gallon, so this is a double batch here. 2 Meyer lemons zested, squeezed, and the whole lemon's thrown in. 2 tablespoons of my 3 flowers blend. You can look at the video notes to see how I make that, so I'm not explaining it every single episode. And your yeast blend and your Fermax to feed the yeast. And if you watch episode 1 of Meads of the Week, or the pilot, I guess you'd say, you'll see me make a basic mead and my basic technique for it. But I wanted to talk about what you need to do with this guy to get it to work. It comes with a paper gasket. No bueno pacaca, okay? So what we need to do is we need to put a new gasket in it. What JD used, I think, was a coffee can lid and cut it out. I was at the grocery store and saw these things. These are for like opening jars. They had a square one and a round one. I kind of jacked this one up. And I was hoping that the round one, it looked so close. Like, would it just fit in there? No, it doesn't. So the best way to do this is you take whatever rubber material you're going to use, lay it down, and lay your lid on it this way, not with this rim, because you want to get the diameter of the inside, not the outside. Lay that on, hold it down, cut it out with a razor knife. If I was doing this alone, and I was, and that's why I jacked this one up, in the future what I do is I get a little piece of plywood, grab it like that, and get one of your clamps, and clamp it so that it stays together, and that way you get a good, even cut without it moving anywhere on you. Once you have it cut, you can just come here in the center and do something like this. because you don't really care about the center of this thing at all. You only care about where it makes contact with the glass. Pop a hole in it. That goes inside here. And we drill a hole, install our airlock. I think JB used like a gasket or something. I just use a standard rubber cork that's designed to run airlocks in a beer bottle, which I use for a lot of other things too. So there you go. That's done and done. But when you drill a hole in metal, it has a tendency to tear and get jagged. It won't if you use one of these. This is a step bit. A lot of times contractors, especially in the contracting world, we call them unibits because one bit does a lot of things. This one runs from 1/4 to 3/4. It'll make holes. You can feel it drill through them, and it'll drop down to the next step and drop down to the next step. And it drills a nice clean hole. You can see that airlock just chugging away there. I made that and pitched the yeast yesterday. But if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, these are like 40, 50 bucks a piece. And they have like a special thing where you got to get the guy to take them off and all. You can get these really affordably in like packs of 2 or 3 to go wide range of sizes for like $14 to $24 at Harbor Freight. I'll have a link in the video notes so you can see where to get these things because these are better. These are for more than just this, okay? So definitely consider getting yourself some unibits for your projects. Let's have a sip of mead. Again, this is just the Meyer Lemon Mead chugging away. And this was made and pitched yesterday. Again, this cherry mead I'm drinking, guys, 35 days old. 35 days from mixing it up and pitching the yeast, and it's fantastic. Now, the reason I went and made, instead of a brand new Jack mead this week, even though I sort of have one here, was I made this, it cleared out beautifully. You can see this was racked on 216, today's 218. So it was already crystal clear. I had already cold crashed it. It wasn't very old. I think it was 20 days old or something like that. When I racked it, you can see I did a bit of sampling. I had 2 big glasses of it because it was so dadgone good. It tastes reminiscent of a Chardonnay, somewhere between like a Chardonnay and a Sauvignon Blanc, but with lemon instead of grapefruit. And I tasted that with the Meyer Lemon, and I thought, man, that sounds fantastic. Again, this is 2 Meyer lemons to the gallon. Zest them, throw the zest in. Juice them, put the juice in. Throw the whole thing in. The Fermax, 2 tablespoons of the 3 flowers blend. That's it. Man, this is good. So it's like, if it has a Chardonnay characteristic, I love oaky, buttery oaky Chardonnays with that kind of vanilla flavor to them and what have you. So it's like I can just throw some oak chips in there. I started looking around and I found these things called Oak Infusion Spirals. My jury's still out because I haven't tasted it yet, but the reviews on these are fantastic. The magic is by making basically an oak dow and toasting it. This is a light toast, which is traditional for American Chardonnays. And then cutting a spiral in it, you get both long grain and end grain exposure inside whatever you're oaking. And that speeds things up. In about 6 weeks, you get full oaking. There's about 1/3 of the stick in here. I've got 2/3 of the stick left to go and be split in half to 2 secondaries when that's done, assuming that this comes out the way that I think it's going to. Then I got 1 whole other stick to play with, and I'm thinking cherry oak. Yeah, that might be really good. But maybe do something different with this and get like a dark toasted oak to go more to the bourbon side, because this reminds me a little bit of like a gentle cherry brandy. Almost like you took a little cherry brandy and you watered it down in a nice way to lighten it up and to make it not hit you so hard, so it's not so bitey. And I'm thinking about cherry brandy, like, or a cherry port with like a dark oak or a medium toast oak. Seems like a good idea, so we may do that. But these are awesome. I'll have a link to where you can get them on Amazon. Guys, most of my links, Harbor Freight, Mountain Rose Herb, stuff like that, they're not affiliate links. If I link to Amazon, it is an affiliate link. If you're going to buy it from Amazon anyway, please click my link so that I make a penny or 2 on it. That would help me keep doing this Meads of the Week thing a little bit more energetically. So that's it for the Meyer Lemon Mead. Next up, what is the new Mead of the Week? There has to be at least one new one every week. That's the deal. A new mead, a new thing every single week. Last week it was Kiwi Peppermint. That's coming along great, guys. It's like 10 days since I did the last episode. It's already starting to clear. And what's cool when you When you start making these small batches, you start to see how meads clear. You start to see it clearing before it clears. Your meads, if you notice, when you inoculate them with your yeast and they start up, they kind of have this kind of uniform color, and they start to cloud the next day as the yeast gets ready to be really active, and they cloud from the top down. They clear from the top down too. So you'll start to see, if you start watching your meads, you'll see this little line start to clear, and that line will get a little bigger and a little bigger every day as that mead starts to flocculate out, or the yeast starts to flocculate out. Well, it's really cleared down in there already, the Kiwi Peppermint. So we're probably going to be cold crashing that by, I think Monday I'll go ahead and cold crash it. And I like to cold crash my fruit meads before I rack them to the secondary, because all the fruit drops, the fruit lays on top of the yeast sediment, and when you rack out of it, you leave a lot more of the yeast sediment behind. But anyway, what's this one? This doesn't sound different than this much. It's like a lighter version of this with more honey. But it's what's going to happen to it next. This is a half a Meyer Lemon and 3 pounds of honey. Yes, I broke my 2.5 pound of honey deal because I want this to be a little sweeter. You'll see why in a second. It is 1/2 of Meyer Lemon. As I said, I'm starting to come up with base recipes. I'm probably going to settle on, no matter what I'm doing, at least 1/4 of a Meyer Lemon, and the 2 tablespoons to 3 flowers blend is my base in meads, because they do such a nice job of balancing it and giving it nice acidity. What I noticed was I made a batch of the full 3 flowers mead, 3/4 of a cup of the 3 flowers blend, honey, yeast, and Fermax, and that's it. And I was drinking, so this is really good. I took a little wedge of Meyer Lemon and just put a couple drops of lemon juice in it for the acidity to balance it out. Was so much better. So I'm going to be trying that with the Meyer Lemon. But this is going to be Vin, Cin, and Gin, right? That's what we're going to call this one, Vin, Cin, and Gin. The Vin is vanilla. So we're going to have real Madagascar bourbon vanilla beans. Well, I don't know exactly the quantities yet, but all of these spices are going into the secondary, not the primary fermentation. So we're going to have this. We are going to have Cin, Vin, Cin. This is ceylon cinnamon. Most of the cinnamon you guys buy in the store and what have you, that's not real cinnamon, that's cassia. This is true cinnamon, ceylon or sweet cinnamon. It's a lot gentler, a lot milder. It's a lot better for you health-wise. Yes, you can make mead medicinal. And actually, real cinnamon can actually cause some health, or fake cinnamon, I'm sorry, that you find in the stores can cause some health problems. I'm not going to go into that today, but this is real cinnamon. I'll have a link where you can find both of these on Amazon and tell you what you're really looking for. If you use Mountain Rose Herbs, they sell this in cinnamon chips. It would be just fine. It might actually be more effective because you got more surface area with the chips. But I was going to buy the vanilla anyway, so I bought this because I also make my very special Jack's Apple Pie Moonshine using the cinnamon sticks, and some of that's going to be made pretty soon too. So we got that. The other thing that I did a little different here, I found a new source of honey. Really not a new source, but a new bulk source. This is Dutch Gold honey. I found a place called Websterant, websterant.com, and I bought 30 pounds of the wildflower and 30 pounds of the orange blossom. So this is made with the wildflower. So this is going to be wildflower honey, cinnamon, vanilla, and ginger. When I go into the secondary, I'm going to put ginger in there. So it's going to be wild Cin Vin Gin. That should be pretty cool. And it was inspired by Indulge from Moonlight Meadery. It will be a lot drier than Indulge. Indulge is really sweet to me. Even with 3 pounds of honey, we're still going to get pretty dry using our yeast blend. Speaking of our yeast blend, people have asked me about, do you rehydrate yeast? The question keeps coming back. When I make beer, I rehydrate most dry yeast. If I'm using like Saf Ale 04 or something like that. This stuff, this is what I do, guys. There's just nothing to this. That's the other thing. Is it one of each? Or yes, one of each. It's a lot of yeast for the amount we're making. That's it. I don't really shake it once I put these. Just make sure it gets a little bit wet. I have a cap behind the camera that I'll put on later where I've drilled a hole with the unibit, put in a stopper and an airlock. So we'll get that on there as soon as the video's over. The last thing I wanted to talk about though, these corks. If you go to use one of these and use either a secondary or in your refrigerator, or if you're going to cold crash in a primary and you've got this big airlock, this bottle's not that big, but the airlock is standing about that high. So what I found is I have a really deep keezer, and I have my kegs at the bottom, and I have a shelf on the top, and you can set these bottles on that shelf and close it and not move your kegs or anything. Great, except with the airlock, it wouldn't close. The airlock's too high, the lid hits it. So what you do is you just take a balloon, you pull your airlock out of your stopper, you put the balloon over your airlock, cold crash away, secondary age away. Of course, if you go into a glass carboy, which for secondaries I really recommend you go into glass. Once you're in a glass or a small mouth jug, you can just put the balloon right over it for that. So that'll work there. That kind of gets us up to speed for this edition of Meads of the Week. Hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoy making mead, you probably enjoy a lot of things in self-sufficiency, self-reliance, and independence. You can learn more about all of that, all kinds of great stuff, from how to grow your own stuff to make your mead with, how to take care of bees, and how to be more self-reliant and independent on my podcast called The Survival Podcast, and you can find more out about that at, you guessed it, thesurvivalpodcast.com, or just go to tspc.co. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed this week's edition. I'll catch up with you next week.